In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Gimp 2.10.18. Hey guys, this is Kevin for Pixavert.com, and we're going to be looking at what happened to Gimp 2.10.16. And I think it may be a good idea to talk a little bit about how to handle buggy software as well. Now, Gimp 2.10.16 came out just a couple of days ago. Did a video on that one, and you probably want to see that video first because everything in that video still applies. However, if you've got 2.10.16, it's probably a very good idea to upgrade as soon as you can to 2.10.18. Now, the previous video will cover about 5 of the top new features. This one, I think, will contain one of the top new features, and I'm also going to take this opportunity to discuss some of the newer stuff as well that I didn't think was quite as important, but which is still fairly interesting to look at. Now, the first thing is when you start using 2.10.18, it's going to try to get an update from the Gimp website. It's going to try to find out if there's an update. That's a feature you can use, or you can turn it off. If you turn it off, we can go to Help, we can go to About Gimp, and we can check for updates manually. And that should help you to keep up to date if there are any sort of bug fixes or anything like that that come along. We've got the toolbox here. It's the new design. And I had the feeling using this that not everyone is going to be 100% liking this. So I'm just going to very quickly cover again how it works. We can go ahead and click on an icon and it will show up a submenu. The erase tool does not have a submenu, but most of the icons are organized in a logical way. And if you right click, you'll immediately get the submenu. When you click on a particular tool, it becomes the icon for that particular group. You can also just scroll through like this. Yeah, you can just hover and scroll, and you'll see the other tools that are in a particular group. Now, I'm going to just show you again how to switch it off. And if we want to switch it off, what we do is that we go to Toolbox, we go to Edit Preferences, Toolbox, and we use the Use Tool Groups option. Now, if you want to completely change how this is organized, you can create your own folders and you can start moving things around into your own groupings. So it's very flexible, and I think most people are actually going to prefer this newer version here. One other thing I wanted to mention is let's create a new document. Now, there's a new way that the brush tool works. So currently, I think this is the behavior, the default behavior now. The previous default behavior can be restored if you want to by going to Image Windows, and you can turn Snap Brush Outline to Stroke. And what that does is that it produces this different type of behavior. If you notice with this behavior, this is the older behavior. The cursor will separate from the brush, and then the brush will follow the stroke as I'm making the stroke. Whilst with the newer behavior, if I do that, you'll see that the cursor and the brush basically stay together, and the actual painting goes on behind. Now, there are some times when you might want to use the newer behavior. Sometimes you might want to go to the older behavior. So that's going to be up to you. Another thing that they did was that they introduced a new feature which can be used when working with multiple layers and doing transformations. We've got a number of images that are all related to one another, these letters. So I can lock them together using the icon there. And then if I decide I want to move them, they move together. But if I want to do a transformation, let's say I wanted to do, I don't know, let's use the new tool. Let's bring out the 3D transform tool. The 3D transform tool is just basically a perspective tool with a lot of options attached to it. We click on the layer here. And if I wanted to do a transform, let's go to the default behavior. This is what happens. Now all of these three layers are linked, and if I hit transform, they all change. But with the new option, we'll use the scale tool. So if I come here and start scaling these, you'll see that it scales independently initially, and secondly, what it's doing is that it's going outside of the preview box, outside of the canvas. What we can do is turn this guy on. So this feature is now available on all the transform tools, or at least the majority of the ones that I've used. If we turn on Composited Preview, what it does is that it will actually clip the layer in the preview so that you can see what the image is going to look like after you finish the transform. Secondly, you can choose preview linked items, and what that does is that it edits all the linked items together, and this allows you to keep everything together so that it's a bit easier to see what's going on. There's another option called Synchronous Preview, and if we click on that one, it should make things a little bit easier to see. Now you can't actually see it in this particular example because, you know, I've got my screen recording software running, my audio software, and it's affecting the performance of my PC. But if I wasn't running the other stuff, what would happen is that if this was turned on, the synchronous preview, everything would change a lot more smoothly. But if you have not got a very powerful CPU, what will happen is that you'll get the same results I'm getting right here, where it's not updating quickly. So in that situation, what you want to do is to turn this off and go to the old default behavior, which is where it takes a bit of time to update. But that's something which, if you can turn it on, I'll recommend turning it on. But it will depend on how powerful your computer is. And overall, I've got to also point out that I feel the performance of this version of Gimp is a lot better. I've also got a new computer, so maybe that's improving the performance as well. But they have introduced a number of performance improvements to opening up PSD documents, which now happens a lot faster. And the other thing is, just looking at my notes here, if you have a lot of brushes that you need to import when you start the program, that apparently happens quite a lot faster as well. Now, there's another feature to do with the transform tools that I want to look at. So if we go to the 3D transform again, and this will also be on the rotate tool. Let's turn these off. We have this new widget here. So if I want to, I can work from the center like that, or I can choose a corner, and then it's going to tie one of the corners down and allow me to use that as the pivot point. Now this works on this tool, and it works it also works on the rotate tool. So that's something useful when you are doing rotations and transformations that require some kind of pivot. Another new feature is found in we go to the Paintbrush. Let's go here. Let's undo these. And there is a dialog called Symmetry Painting. There's a new option in Symmetry Painting. Now with Symmetry Painting, what happens is that you draw one stroke, and it will multiply the strokes according to whatever option you want. So we've got the mandala option, which gives us this kind of funky stuff that looks awesome. We've got the tiling option that looks like that, and we've now got the mirror option. That's pretty psychedelic, isn't it? Now, those are what I felt were the not quite so significant updates. Let's take a look at one of the more significant ones. So we now go to preferences. We're going to take a look at the icons. So there are new icons. These are the old icons that you're looking at here. We've got a new one called the symbolic high contrast, and that's a little bit brighter than the symbolic one. And there's also an inverted version, which is now slightly more high contrast. And that just makes everything seem a bit more clear, especially if you're sitting back from the PC, if you've got one of these larger monitors and you want to see the icons clearly. I think this will make life a lot easier. So I wanted to just finish off by discussing what happened with 2.10.16, which is the version that was out for 2 days. What happened was that the developers found that there was a bug in the software, and they actually went ahead and canceled the release. So if we go right to the top here, they say that they skipped announcing the 2.10.16 update due to a critical bug. Now, that's the reason why I say if you are on 2.10.16, it's a good idea to update to 2.10.18. The other thing is, sometimes you do get these weird little bugs that occur inside of software, and they tend to be at their worst when the software is very new. So how can you avoid getting caught up with these sort of bugs? If you're like me, you're not going to worry too much about bugs. You know how to handle bugs, and you're expecting bugs anyway. But if you're more conservative, what you can do is to wait a couple of weeks after a new release has been announced. Any significant bugs will normally be caught within that 2-week period. Then you can update once those bugs have been fixed. I remember with Gimp 2.10.0, there was a really nasty bug for Windows users. That was repaired on the same day, but if you install the very first version, it completely wrecked your installation of Gimp 2.10.0. and also 2.8, and that wasn't very nice, but they fixed that the same day. And generally speaking, I think with the minor releases, if you wait a couple of weeks, you should avoid most of the nasty bugs. For the major releases, now Gimp 2.10 is going to be replaced eventually by Gimp 3, and when that happens, we will see a whole bunch of new features. We'll probably see a whole bunch of new bugs as well. And what you need to be aware of is when the new Gimp 3.0 comes out, you may get a situation where some of the plugins are no longer working, and it may take a bit of time before those plugins are updated. For that reason, it may make sense to wait a little bit longer. If you're very conservative, you might wait a couple of months when the new version of Gimp 3.0 comes out before updating. The other point I wanted to make is that the software development is continuing. We don't know when Gimp 3.0 is going to come out, but there is this note here in the release notes for Gimp 2.10.18. The Gimp team are looking to improve the layout of the software by creating individual named workspaces. So there may be a workspace for web design, for digital photography, and so on. And what they're asking for is, if you are someone who customizes your own Gimp layout for a particular workflow, they're asking you to post a screenshot and tell them about your use case so that they can try to figure out how to build these different workspaces that will best serve your particular use case. So that's something that you might want to do if you're on Twitter or if you're on the mailing list for Gimp users. That is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you download the software and enjoy it. I think it's a pretty decent update. That is going to be it for now. I will see you guys later. Bye.